What's going on, y'all, and welcome on in. Today I got an ML5 tier list catered for new players. Think of it as a pull priority tier list. Which ML5 does the most for new players, returning players, mid-game players, etc. This is not an endgame veteran tier list for which units perform the best in this season. No, this is mostly just to gauge a few things here. How good are these units for newer accounts, free-to-play accounts? Because if you're going to spend 10,000 mystics, you want to know which units give you the best bang for your buck. And now that the Mystic rotations are faster, a lot of y'all can actually just end up waiting for them to appear in the Mystic rotations. We gauge a few things: ease of gear, how much it does for new players, PvE potential, PvP potential, as well as also late game, potential, because even though this is for newer players, you don't always want to just pull a unit that falls off, only good in the early game and falls off like a ton of breaks in the late game. Okay, so all that considered, I also double checked with my Twitch stream. We moved things around. Hopefully you guys find this super helpful. And that being said, if you guys like this kind of content, if you want to see more, please consider subscribing to the Amazon channel. This channel I am featured on pretty often. Please, boys, it would mean a lot to me if y'all could hit that sub button if you want, okay? All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty. Alrighty, y'all, now that we know what the tier list is all about, let's go ahead and start from the top to the bottom. We'll start with the S rank row and end with the C rank row. I'm going to try to move quicker as we progress down the ranks, as I have 35 Moonlight 5 stars to talk about, and I don't want this video to drag on super long. Also keep in mind, I did kind of order them left to right slightly, but overall, with most of my tier list, guys, you can move units around, up one, down one, left to right one, and it's not that big of a deal. Don't worry too much. Don't get caught up overall in their exact placements. This is, a little bit of personal preference, as all tier lists are. So let's just go ahead and start from top to bottom, left to right. All right, first things first, guys, we have the queen, the undisputed, in my opinion, best ML5 of all time right now, Spectre Tenebria. Okay, let's start with PvE. The reason she is by far the best is for PvE. She can make certain abyss floors a joke because of her strong scaling damage, access to things like Taga Hells. Her S2 passive gives attack and defense scaling. Her skill 1 has poison, which just absolutely obliterates certain difficult bosses, especially in Abyss, Hell Raid, etc. And then in, PvP, some of those strengths are also very good. The attack and defense scaling, skill 3 stun, can't be countered on skill 1, and stealth, which makes your opponent have to bring reach units. If you don't know what reach means, it means they have to have special attacks, area of effect attacks that can hit her because she is perma-stealth. Overall, one of the strongest units both in PvE and PvP. You should pick her up from your initial Moonlight 5 connection. If you didn't pick her up there, let's say you picked Arby or Judge Kisei, I can't blame you for that. But you should try to get Stenny as soon as possible when she rolls around Mystics, Galaxy Coins, whatever might have you, as she is one of the best overall ML5s and the best ML5 for new players. Moving right along, guys, the second best is Apocalypse Ravi. So not quite as good as Stenny for PvE. She can't, single-handedly destroy Abyss floors, but she can be used in certain PvE areas if you just need a strong frontline damage dealer. On top of that, guys, for PvP, she is the perfect bruiser, okay? Kind of like Stenny, I forgot to mention this. They can both be used in fast comps, cleave comps, aggressive comps, standard, just very basic comps, as well as tanky comps, turn 2. Apocalypse Ravi, even more so than Stenny, is just usable in every single playstyle in the game, as well as in RTA, can be drafted either first or last, wherever you need her. She's just so good, not even that hard to gear, because she has built-in crit chance, built-in survivability via her heals, and combat readiness push. She's just so good. Soul Burn on skill 1, very, very high multipliers. Injury as well, so she can grind down tanky units that she can't just instantly burst. And her skill 3, of course, can instantly swing matches from the brink of defeat because of its revive potential. And it pushes the unit 100% CR with skill nullifier. Absolutely busted. She does... guys, I'm going to say this very, very lightly. For Emperor Plus, she isn't quite as strong as first pick. You can get punished a little bit, but that being said, she is still insanely strong in all areas and all levels of the game. Don't regret it ever. Pick her up as soon as you can. She's on Mystic rotation right now. If you have no other idea what you want, just get her, and you won't regret it at all. Next up, guys, we have Conqueror Lilius. Now, unlike Stenny and Apocalypse Ravi, we can use her in all comps. But typically we want her in more aggressive and faster comps, as she works really well with high speed. Now, before I get to that, let's talk about PvE potential. She does have some very good PvE potential in the form of Holo Trials. She's an absolute Holo Trials monster. You've probably seen some of her comps used, like 2-man setups for Holo Trials, because she provides vigor. A lot of bosses, if they have that attack down, requirement to give extra damage, then she'll guarantee pull your DPS with her dual attack. Super strong in Holo Trials if you care about that. And then of course for Arena, Guild Wars, especially defense, RTA, top tier pick, one of the strongest units overall. High speed, can't dispel her vigor, utility in the form of barriers and provokes, can bring offensive pressure with her dual attacks. And then the skill 3 has both attack down and vigor up, can't be dispelled. Super powerful, super busted, just really strong. Just be careful if you don't have some insane speed gear. She won't be as strong if you're brand new. Next up, guys, we have Mediator Koeric, aka Hand Guy. And the reason I place him so high up is because unlike other Soul Weavers like DJ Bazaar, Montmorency, Destina, you don't really have to build effect resist on him because of the way his skill 2 debuff duration works. Now, that isn't to say he doesn't have hard counters like Faithless Litica, Soul Burning like Koeric. If you can skill push back him, even with like Judge Kisei, you can stop him from doing his job. But other types of debuffers, they cannot stop him from just full cleansing because of how his skill, his debuff duration works. It's very hard to crowd control him compared to other Soul Weavers, and I think for new players it's hard to stack 200 plus effect resist, 250, 300 effect resist can be impossible for new and returning players. So I think that's really good. On top of that, he's just a toolkit of utility. Every turn you have something new to do that you need to decide on. CR push on skill 1, barriers and attack down on skill 2, as well as a full strip, and then skill 3, right, the immunity, attack up, full cleanse. Very strong, very powerful, super unique as well in terms of cleansing. All right, last but not least, guys, we have Lionheart Surmia, which some of y'all might question. This is probably the one that I think if y'all saw it, might be questioning. Let me know in the comments what y'all think about that. But my Twitch chat, I originally had her in A rank, but my Twitch chat was very adamant about putting her in S rank. And you know what? I agree with them. So let's start with PvE. Guys, I'm actually using her in my auto Hell Raid. A lot of bosses just do dual attacks, extra attacks, so she'll provide a ton of damage there, both in the form of AoE, right? Her skill 3 AoE. She'll full cleanse, so you don't have to worry about any debilitating debuffs. And then she also follows with a pretty strong skill 1. Just a overall really strong unit that will constantly proc her skill 2 because of those extra attack, counterattacks that all the bosses have, especially in Hell Raid, other areas of the game. And then, of course, for PvP, guys, even in late game right now, a super strong pick. Maybe not on the same level in terms of like if this was an endgame RTA tier list as like their other 4 here. Oops, I didn't mean to move that around, guys. Sorry. I'm going to have to reorganize that. But overall, the Lionheart Surmia is a super strong pick both early and late game because of what she brings to the table. She answers a lot of annoying units like Conqueror Lilius. Just keep in mind, guys, that the damage that people push out these days can sometimes kill her very quickly, so she does kind of need some strong gear, and eventually you do want to put her on lifesteal, so that might minus points a little bit. But for Arena and Guild Wars, not just RTA, guys, there are so many comps that she will just press auto and win, give her a little bit of mitigation via Pillis or some sustain via Rowana, and all 3 of those units just synergize and can fight all those annoying dual attack, extra attack, counter attack, Rem, Merus, Shoes, whatever procs them. She just absolutely destroys. So I think for all those reasons I just mentioned, she deserves her S rank position. Okay, next up, guys, let's move on to the A rank row. All right, let's pick up the pace a little. In the A rank row, guys, we have Designer Lilibet. Some argument could be made to put her in the S rank row. And remember, guys, all these units can be moved up and down one row, left to right a little bit. Not too big of a deal. Don't get hung up on their exact placements, just their overall placements you should consider. So Designer Lilibet, guys, very strong, just like Mediator Koeric in terms of cleansing. Very important to fight units like Ren. Good in Guild Wars, good in Arena, good in RTA. A little bit more of a counter pick. We don't want to, first pick her like we would in Pockets Ravi, but the way her cleanse works and the way that she answers a ton of annoying and powerful units, especially Cleave, definitely solidifies her in the A rank spot. Next up, boys, we have Strays, who is getting buffs very soon. We all thought he didn't need any, but he's getting some. So I do think he'll be even better for new players that can't build him on some insane gear, as it's going to be even easier to get him on his full penetration. Just like Designer Lilibet, though, we don't want to early pick him using more aggressive comps. But if y'all have trouble fighting like tanky squads, he's an absolute monster there. And late game potential too in the form of one-shotting certain hunts. So, both PvE and PvP potential. Good in the A rank row. Next up, guys, we have RB, who a lot of players, this is also one that some of y'all might want lower or higher up, but RB, I still think for new players is a great pickup. Don't pick him over Stenny for your like Moonlight 5, your free Moonlight 5, but if you do have a chance to get him, guys, he is super good for new players. Even though he has a ton of counters now, and even though dog walking isn't as important as it used to be, if you just need a fast farmer for PvE, anytime you need just a lot of wave clear, he's super good there if you're behind on side stories. And then for PvP, Arena Guild Wars, we just slap him in a lot of comps, give him an Alexa's basket. Sometimes he'll just straight up cleave and you can leave instantly. And then for RTA, we want to pick him a little bit safer in the later picks, avoid extinction, avoid 2-tap units, but he still can win matches on his own. Still is important against like anti-cleaving. Not as much cleaving, you can cleave with him, but still a great pick where you just, if he's unanswered, still does his job beautifully. Super strong. Next up, guys, we have Solitaria. And for new players, PvE has no potential here. So we're going to start venturing a little bit more into niche categories for ML5s. Solitaria, though, the reason I think she's so good is because of her unique anti-focus mechanic. So she will hard counter certain units, namely, you know, Archie Mercedes, which can be a problem later on. She's just a good unit you want if you are going to be playing PvP later. Guild Wars and Arena, she can stop annoying units like Rimu by just stunning. Even with immunity, she can stun him permanently, eat up his skill too. And then for RTA, guys, if your opponent doesn't bring a cleanser like Mediator Kuwarik, Momo, whatever have you, if they have no cleanse, she will single-handedly control the entire team by herself. No joke. If you haven't seen it happen, you will eventually, and you will be so upset. Better be the one debuffing than the one taking those debuffs, okay? Next up, guys, we have Archie Mercedes, who also might be considered lower because of how hard she is to gear. She needs some insane counter gear. She needs some bulk to really be that end game monster. She is one of the strongest PvP carries, Giga carries at the moment. But I do think she deserves a spot here because when you pull her as a newer player, you can just give her like a speed set, slap toggles on her, and then in Guild Wars and Arena, we can use her to answer units like Arbiter Vildred, units like Rimu. Her seal is so unique and so powerful that even without that really tanky counter gear, we just use her for the seal in the beginning, use her versus those problem units, and then we have the late game monster when we're ready to gear her, when we're ready to venture to Banshee. I think she's so important for that role, and I think she is, just with the seal being so unique, she deserves a spot in the A rank tier for new players. Next up, guys, we have Bellion. And the reason Bellion maybe shouldn't be on here is because she is pre-banned and post-banned so often. But despite that, I actually just put her in my Advent video. So she does have some very rare PvE applications, but she is primarily a PvP unit. She has the unique ability to stop all souls from being gained on your opponent's side. One of the most powerful abilities. That's why she's banned so often. But I do think you should still pick her up when you can, because there are some players, especially Stenny abusers, Stenny pickers, that may not ban or pre-ban Bellion, and you want her ready to answer units like Stenny, units like Landy. She has AoE on all of her abilities. Provoke. She's just super powerful, guys. I do think you should pick her up when you can, even if she's banned a ton. Next up, guys, we have Spirit Eye Celine, who is not as powerful on her own as some of these other units, as she has a lot of hard counters, but for Guild Wars and Arena especially, she is very powerful. Also not super hard to gear, doesn't necessarily need like super good lifesteal gear. I still have her on speed gear for Arena, and she can single-handedly kill and control or bait out Apocalypse Robbies. She provides that immortality for your squad. Self-cleanse, she's just really powerful in Arena and Guild Wars. And then RTA, she can be useful there. You just need to pick her way later, as like I mentioned, she has a lot of hard counters. Okay, next up, guys, we have Maid Chloe, who this one is actually another one that my Twitch chat brought up higher. I do think for late game there's way better Soul Weavers, but you know, for new players, she is very powerful, has access to revive, a long turn attack up, also was featured in my Advent video. And just really good in PvE and PvP for newer players. She does maybe fall off a little bit in terms of RTA potential, but if you like her looks, if you like her style, on top of just, you know, what she brings to the table, stun, a little bit of sustain, and then that super good AoE team revive and attack up, you know, she is very good for newer and mid-game players. Next up, we have Fallen Cecilia, who y'all might be surprised is at the bottom of the A rank tier. Some people even want her in the B rank row, guys. With how barriers are getting weaker via Frenzy, units that like Operator Sigret and DJ Bazaar, Desert Jewel Bazaar, can trap her by abusing her barrier. She's kind of lost stock, especially also with Roz rising to the top of the Knights. She's not used as often, but she still provides one of the highest team mitigation because of her barriers. Skill Null can be just game-breakingly good if you use it wisely. So for Arena, Guild Wars, and RTA, still commonly picked. Just for areas like RTA, she has lost her top knight position. Keep that in mind, okay? But still a valuable pickup overall. All right, now let's go ahead and lightning round these. Let's move into the B and C rank rows. Alrighty, boys, I just checked the time, and I got to move through the rest of these very fast so the video doesn't run too long. If you have any extra questions on these B and C rank units, just leave them in the comments below, and I'll get to as many as possible. Okay, Little Queen Charlotte, super strong anti-dark nuker, but unfortunately has a lot of ways to interrupt her. We got to be a little bit safer on when we pick her in the drafts. When she does her job, though, she does it beautifully, but with how many units can interrupt, strip, attack down, tank up, skill nullify right before her, provoke, whatever it might be, it's just hard to run her without, you know, Soul Weaver like Amelia holding her hand, which doesn't always, you know, work out. Next up, guys, we have DJB, who, unlike Hand Guy, needs a lot of effect resist, needs a lot of bulk, and with his kind of poor stat line, it's very hard to accomplish all of that as a new player. That being said, guys, if you want a late game Soul Weaver, he is super good right now, but since this is an early game tier list, we leave him in the lower ranks. Closer Charles is just a great unit if you want to start branching into more aggressive or cleave comps. Great pickup, good damage, utility in the form of attack up, combat readiness, all the good stuff. Very good for aggressive players that want to go into that territory. Dark Corvus, Mystic Farming Machine. If he's really, that's the main thing is Guild Wars, guys. He does have some application versus units like Lionheart, Sirmia in late game RTA, but overall, you're going to use him if you want to farm Mystics as a safe option. Just keep in mind, he's going to make your fights take forever. Operator Sigret, very strong in units like Fallen Cecilia, anything with a barrier. Hua Young, one of the best answers to Hua Young, especially in areas like Guild Wars. But overall, the fact that she kind of needs Guiding Light and the fact that you need some insane gear to secure kills against tanky opponents, even with barriers, means we put her in the B rank row. Let's actually talk about Flitica first, guys. Flitica, just like Operator Sigret, after her buffs, is an absolute monster. Such high damage, but you kind of want Guiding Light on her, and she also needs some insane gear. Boys, don't underestimate her. She can solo carry. She's so strong at the moment after her new buffs. Ruel is just, it's just not a revived meta, guys. The meta has shifted too fast, too aggressive for her to be as good as she used to be. But if the things ever slow down, she will once again be the queen. Ruel and friends will come back. She always has a spot somewhere, but currently, unfortunately, especially for new players, not very good, especially compared to other Soul Weavers, even free-to-play Soul Weavers. Okay, let's move on to the C rank row. Leading off in the bottom ranks, we got Remnant Violet, who some players love him, some players hate him. I still see not a lot of new players crying out for him to get buffed, and that should say something. He needs some insane gear, and I also think some new players just can't handle the fact that you can just have him die to effectively a coin flip. You know, obviously a little bit higher if you have an evasion artifact, but for those reasons, I do think he belongs in the C rank row. Just understand, guys, as you progress through, he's actually a super strong unit, and most late game players respect the heck out of him. Last Rider Crowd, no PvE capabilities, does have some counter play potential against units like Archdemon and Mercedes, so you will see him pop up in late game PvP, but overall, just better picks. A little bit more niche. Same thing with Judge Kisei. Kind of niche, can be used in fast aggressive comps or in with high effectiveness to counter units like Hand Guy. But overall, just much better picks that do more overall. Silverblade Araminta, while she's good for new players, while she's a crowd favorite, there's just too many strong cleansers like Mediator Quirk, like DJB, like Momo, like Destina, that just stop her entire game plan from operating. So unfortunately for those reasons, she's not a great late game pick, even if she's strong early, even if she does look really good. Ambitious Taiwan, kind of like Last Rider Crowd, a little bit more niche, no PvE potential, excuse me. Little bit of anti-debuff here and there. Used to be very good, but overall has fallen off quite a bit. Very niche. Top model Luluka, guys. With Milim coming out potentially very soon on the rerun, I think she definitely deserves to be here in the bottom, even though she looks great, even though a lot of players love her, even though some players can still make her look good. I do think she needs some buffs or needs to be set apart a little bit more from Milim, as Milim kind of does her job, and in some aspects, especially against units like Landy, even she does her job even better. Excuse me, guys. Haste on paper, still very good because he has very good PvE potential in the form of A13. He can get your early rage set farming underway, but with the fact that there's just way less revivers like Ruel, Arby's not seen as often in Guild War and Arena defenses, he kind of lost his mainstay purpose as that anti-revive unit. Sage Ball kind of like DJB, guys, very hard to gear, but late game, very, very strong versus certain anti-cleave. But with that being said, he only fights certain comps, and with his gear difficulty requirements, we place him in the bottom row. Specimen Says, I don't really know what to say about Specimen Says, guys. There's some players that swear by him, but overall, you don't see him really late game in almost any kind of content for the most part. Some players can make him look good, but I do think still he needs more. And overall, there's just way better picks, especially if you play him like a bruiser role. There's just way better units overall. Briarwitch Iseria, this one I can't comment on too much, guys, because to me, I think she still seems great. High damage, AoE, immortality now after her buffs a while back, and then like great debuffs. But I guess because of the fact that there's just such strong cleansers, and then we have better damage dealing units, she doesn't really have a spot despite all the stuff she has going for her. Just look at how often she's played in the late game. You don't see her as much, especially as much as you used to. So definitely not a great pickup for new players. Sylvan Sage Vivian. This one I have a lot of experience with, guys. I absolutely love her looks. I triple S, but overall, with the fact that she has so many hard counters, guys, she can be a good late game unit. Don't get me wrong, some players will make her look amazing, but for new players, there's just better mages, there's better nukers, there's better AoE units, and she has so many hard counters, you got to pick her more carefully. For those reasons, we place her in the bottom row. Kind of like Commander Pavel, guys. Commander Pavel, though, I dread fighting. Late game players will tell you he is so strong. He's kind of like Rylet, where new players sometimes can't really make him look super great. That's because his gear requirements, probably over all these units, are very high. That being said, if you can get that gear requirement, if you can make a team, you know, you'll have to build some units with crit. You'll have to run certain units that can take extra turns, like Faithless Litica, like Elfelt. If you get all that running, he's an absolute monster. But for new players, they're just better picks overall, so we put him in the bottom row. Pirate Captain Flan, guys, also like Sylvan Sage Vivian, one of my favorites. If you want to run her on that Sea Saria artifact, she can look good in some regards, but overall, in terms of like her bombing and the fast cleave, how I think she was designed, she definitely needs a rework, needs some buffs, needs something to make her more usable. Last but not least, guys, we have ML Ken, Martial Artist Ken, who is also one of my absolute favorites, but I place him in the bottom row because of the last round of buffs. A lot of players considered it a nerf. With the fact that we have so many powerful units that have just anti-counter, like Spectre Tenebria, like Landy, he just doesn't have a spot anymore, guys. And honestly, I don't even know if Smilegate can buff him, because if you give him too many buffs, he becomes just so super busted. But it sucks to see once, you know, one of the strongest ML5s, just how bad he is currently at the moment. All right, guys, that wraps it about up. Remember, sorry I had to rush through the end units. I kind of didn't give a lot of these lower rank units as much time as I would like to, but leave me any comments and I can elaborate further. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. Hopefully this helps you out, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Don't forget to subscribe. Peace out, everybody.